Welcome back to the 2014 gubernatorial debate. Our next topic is on taxes, and Chris Keating has the question. Chris?
Ms. Dean, what taxes would you cut or raise if you became governor, and do you favor or not Governor Malloy's $55 tax rebate?
Well, let me start with the fake tax rebate, because this was simply a fraud by government. Basically, the Malloy administration went out and borrowed money at our expense in order to give us a rebate. This is everything that we were just talking about corruption in government. The state of Connecticut currently is trying to raise taxes through hospitals, millions of dollars suddenly that hospitals have to pay. Then they raise the health care costs. We don't know that that's how taxes are being raised, because we just see higher health care costs and we think, oh, health care costs have gone up. No, hospitals are being used as revenue collectors. This is wrong. So I believe government should spend less. I believe government should do what it's supposed to do only, and do it very well, and just stop infringing on people's privacy and core rights. That's a much less expensive government. We are at true risk in Connecticut, and let me just step to the tax question. I have proposed to end the income tax. If you look at the data on states around the country, that states that do not have an income tax have population moving in. They have for a long time now. There's a great study out of Oklahoma, and states that continue to have an income tax lose population.
Mr. Loretti.
Can you say the question again, please?
I said, what taxes would you cut or raise if you became governor, and do you favor Governor Malloy's tax rebate?
Well, before you can talk about eliminating any taxes, you have to do something with the spending problem. Because if you're going to say that you're going to promise people you're going to eliminate a tax, how do you displace that with the spending that's occurred? So we've got a spending problem before we can solve the tax problem. What I wouldn't be doing is I wouldn't be giving out corporate welfare. Particularly, I wouldn't be giving the richest hedge fund in the world $115 million to move from Westport to Stamford. In particular, when their CEO made $2 billion, because at the end of the day, the working people of this state are paying for that, and that's a tax. So you've got a real issue that you've got to deal with on the spending side of the equation before you can start eliminating taxes, in my mind. And I think that people really need to understand that loud and clear. You know, when you're a municipal official, your accountability is every day, all day long. And I grew my community by either keeping taxes status quo or lowering them, not by raising them. So there's a real mindset here that people need to look at in terms of who can best affect the tax and consequence change in our state.
Thank you.
Mr. Visconti.
The $55 rebate is basically the governor trying to bribe us with our own money. That's really what it is in an election year. We need to cut the gas tax. Everyone knows it. Who can fill up the car anymore? It's getting ridiculous. My major concern before talking about cutting taxes is to freeze spending and freeze hiring. Connecticut financially is a ship sinking on fire that's drifting into the rocks. We need to stop. We need to stop what's happening before we consider taking away taxes. We need to build a rainy day fund right now. Stop the spending. I have an idea for the sales tax phase out to be a stimulus where we actually look to make Connecticut geographically located between 8.75% sales tax in New York, 6% in Massachusetts, and 7% in Rhode Island. We can become the provision state again where people come to Connecticut as they do, cut through our state, buy our products. This will help businesses hire. We'll be able to get our money back in through corporate taxes and also income tax until we stabilize, until we pump out the bilge of the ship, until we put out the fire, throw the anchor out. We're going the wrong way.
Mr. Bowden.
Well, as you know, I'm running with Heather Summers, the former mayor of Groton, and we both come together and we agree that we ought to do a lot of work in terms of our tax policy. In the short term, we believe that we ought to eliminate the business entity tax, which is a tax designed just to harass our small business owners to say, we know you're in business, we hate you, and we're going to come and take your money. 2, we got to cut the gas tax. We pay more gas tax than anywhere else in the United States of America, and the fact of the matter is we're going to raise more revenue if we cut the gas tax. 3, we believe we need to implement a homestead property tax exemption for our seniors over age 65 so that they can keep their home and stay in their home instead of having to sell and go to Florida or Tennessee or other states. And then finally, Heather and I believe we have to rebalance our complete business tax portfolio. It is too expensive for businesses to stay here, expand here, or come here, and we have to address that. And then finally, the next phase will be to engage in property tax reform. The property tax is the most regressive tax that our residents have to pay. It drives people out of their home, and we have to look at what kind of taxes we collect, Who pays for them? Why do we pay for them? And what services do they provide? And who's responsible for them, whether it's the state or the local government?
Mr. McKinney?
I'm the only candidate running for governor, including Governor Malloy, who's put together a complete state budget that's balanced and doesn't raise taxes. I did that by going over every single line item in the budget, every single agency and department in state government, and making tough choices, because that's what leadership requires. Governor Malloy gave us the largest tax increase in our state history, and it hurt the middle class more than anyone. Cost food to cost more, clothing costs more, gasoline costs more, your income and property taxes went up. I fought against those taxes, and as your governor, I will not only repeal those taxes, but engage in complete tax reform. It's wrong that someone can work their entire lives and then retire in Connecticut where they'll tax your pensions and Social Securities. We should eliminate taxes on pensions and Social Security. We should cut the gasoline tax, and we ought to engage in real property tax reform so people who work their whole lives can continue to live in Connecticut.
Now we have 30-second rebuttals. Ms. Dean?
Well, whoever is governor next is going to be very unpopular. And they need to be comfortable with being unpopular because there are tough choices ahead. I've never tried to be someone who's popular at a large law firm. I was known as somebody who I wanted to be respected very much, but I didn't care whether I was liked. I was going to do what was right. And that's how I was raised. I've done that my entire life. And in the short term, it doesn't work out very well. In the long term, people come to see what you stand for, and they come to see that no matter what they hear or no matter what the attacks are on you, that what you did stand for was right and very helpful.
Mr. Loretti?
We have grown a government so large that it takes every bit of people resource to feed it. And so you've got to stabilize that portion of the equation before you can start talking about reducing taxes, because services are still required to run the state. So in my mind, you've got to stabilize a situation that is going very wrong in one direction. And you just have to look at our unfunded pension and unfunded liabilities in terms of debt, our OPEB liability, teachers' retirement fund, etc.
Mr. Visconti?
Yes, just to wrap up on my sales tax phase out, that would be tied in indexed to inflation and to GDP so that we phase out no quicker than we're actually bringing revenue in. I'm concerned about the Federal Reserve out of Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, signaling 3.5% increase on short-term lending rates. We're headed for a perfect storm where we're mathematically, it's certain we're going to be downgraded at one point for our borrowing. And high interest rates and no ability to borrow, it's going to finish us off.
Mr. Boughton?
A $55 tax rebate, and you got charged $700 more this year in your taxes. How insulting can that possibly be? And by the way, please don't insult us anymore and tell us it's going to create more jobs, because you know and I know that one $55 check is going into your gas tank to get home from this debate today.
Mr. McKinney?
Governor Malloy said Connecticut will never be a low-tax state. Imagine that. In our lifetimes, we've been a low-tax state. And what happened? People created jobs in Connecticut. People made investments, grew businesses, and Connecticut was booming. We can be that great state again. You don't need a $55 rebate. You need government under control to spend less and lower your taxes, and that's what I'll do as your governor.
All right.